So today I'm taking baby my car to the mechanic, see Todd, to get my brakes changed. We're taking all the brakes out, replacing them, so this is the perfect opportunity for me to learn how to change a tyre. I'm very excited to bring you all in on my learning journey. So let's go see Todd. Let's see how we do all this crazy car stuff that I have no idea about, but want to learn. Motorsports to fix all of my brakes. All the parts have come in and we're going to take my car into the workshop and I will learn, one, potentially how to change a tyre. Two, I'm so intrigued to know how you take a brake off and put a brake on and that whole process. Like, do we put my car in the air? Do we do it whilst the car's on the floor? How does it work? This is the workshop, these are the animals. Let's get into it. Is she gonna be lifted up?
Yeah. Yeah, gonna go up in the air.
Cool.
So the first thing I like to do before I do anything is I like to make sure that the brake fluid level is not overfilled because we're going to compress the pistons back all the way.
Right.
So you don't have brake fluid squirting all over the place.
Okay.
We'll check the level again once we're done. Just initially to start, because we're doing a four-wheel brake job, I like to start and not have fluid and garbage and stuff all over the place.
Yes. That's how it works.
Hydraulic fluid that comes out of it, that .4 fluid we're talking about.
Yeah.
So these two lines here, you see, go into this thing right here, and this is your ABS pump. So like in a panic stop, you know, where you feel the pedal pulsate to save you so the brakes don't lock up, goes into this module here, and this distributes the hydraulic pressure to each one of the wheels. So it goes to the brake lines, the calipers in the back. So
the liquid's only going to that bit, not like down.
It's going all throughout the whole car, all four wheels. So it has to travel to this wheel, that wheel, that wheel. And what it is they're split, so they're cross-functional. So usually it's left front to right rear is on one circuit. So in the event of an accident, you don't lose just your front brakes, your rear brakes.
Right.
So like my truck out there doesn't have this. It's very mechanical, very basic. It doesn't have the safety ABS, so if I stomp on it, I can lock all four brakes up and go into a skid. This was added for a safety feature that came in later down the line to save you in the event of an accident. So like when you turn off that button, I'm going to show you the traction control, it turns down the functionality of this.
Right. Does that only come into play when you really slam down the brakes?
It's running all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So, but it's basically a computer-controlled braking system now. Another thing. I've been driving this thing. You can see the shock absorbers like went through their full travel.
Wait, what does that mean?
See how the wear is in right here? So this means that it's gone through, it's got to travel, like how far it can go.
Yeah.
So you can see where this boot has touched here and bottomed out and rubbed. So just driving it, having fun. The shocks on these things, like I said, it's a big heavy car, so they're softy.
Yeah, it could also be the previous owners, right?
Yeah.
Let's not blame it all on me.
So, interesting fact on the Ford stuff. When you change these, be very mindful of how tight you make these. Most people don't have the wrench to correctly torque them, or a tire shop will, but there's not really much to say. Just don't put a lot of pressure on them because they're very soft, and then once they strip out, you can't get it off.
Why are they so soft?
It's just a Ford thing. The only other manufacturer I know that does this. And that's all that comes off.
Way. Simple as that.
Yep, nice and easy. So those are the grooves I was telling you about. You can get a better close on them. You see how don't touch it though, because it'll be hot, but the variation in there, you can kind of see it a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a record player.
Yeah.
Like a record even.
Yeah, and the new ones that I'll show you I'll put on don't have that. So as these get hot and it gets worse and worse, this rippling will get worse, and then it'll eventually turn into a pulsation when you're stopping.
Yeah, this is so rusty as well.
Yeah, I'll show you once we take it apart. There's a little crack on it where it got hot. So what we're doing now is these the little pistons come out as you squeeze it. That's what squeezes the brake rotor assembly. So what I'm doing now is retracting it back into the caliper now, so we can fit the new brake parts. So they'll go to a certain point, they'll stop on their own once it's back to its resting position.
What do you mean by resting position?
Like, they only can go so far, so they're gonna go back. They have like a bore that or a slot that they ride in.
Right.
So the piston's like that big, and the hole that it rides in is this big, so it's going to go to a point where it stops and it bottoms out. So that's the resting position.
Okay.
Yep. So 14mm socket, 3/8 drive, ratchet. The whole goal is to try to minimize when you take this off. This has a piece of rubber hose. This is where the fluid comes into.
Right.
You don't want this just dragging here, because this is all rubber, so what it's going to do is stretch it. So you don't want it to stretch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off, we'll hang it here off the strut coil assembly, so it'll be safely not weighted down all the way. It's got 2 fasteners that hold the caliper to the caliper bracket. All 14mm fasteners. It's going to come out like that.
Open just there.
Yeah. So the assembly will come off now. So. So this is what I was telling you about, how there's the bore it rides in, the hole.
Yeah.
So this thing goes back into it. As the brakes wear, they come out. As you squeeze, they come out, and it clamps this rotor assembly. So you need to compress these back in here so you can fit the new pad assemblies. Then we'll hang that there like that. Nice and simple. There's other fancier contraptions, but I find the bungee cord does a job. These in here are cooling vents.
Yeah.
This one is completely clogged, so there's no air to be able to dissipate, so that's what caused that to heat.
Right.
And you see that shiny kind of surface to it I was telling you about? It turns like a tile.
Yeah.
You can kind of see the glare. That's what's happening, is so the surface of this is now become glazed, so it doesn't dissipate the heat, and that's what's causing the squeaking. So this makes all your squeaking action happen here. This one actually cracked. That's from me, but see the crack here, the fissure?
Yeah.
So that's from overheating.
Oh shit.
So
What happens when it cracks? Like, does it slowly just get bigger and bigger?
It just breaks, and then there's no brake pad material left. So it's not to where I would say, oh, you're gonna die instantly, but it was on its way out.
Yeah, shit. Good thing I came in.
Yeah. So that's cracked, but this got hot. So
yeah.
Take the caliper bracket assembly off. So. Once we put them back on, I'll torque them back into spec, because those do a lot of the heavy lifting. That holds all that, and that needs to be properly torqued or it'll fall off.
You do not want that.
You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite.
In the car?
Huh?
The fluid down there.
Oh, that's from the other car I was working on. So when you use the air conditioning in the car, condensation comes out. So I fixed it. Yes, the last 2 days have been nothing but air conditioning work, fixing air conditioning. So
Right.
when you see that on the ground, it's a good sign. It means your AC is working.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so that's all it is, just water. They have a drain in the bottom, and they put it in the bottom of the car.
Right.
So the hotter it gets, the more humid it gets, the more water comes out of it. And like your car will do it too, probably during the summer when you use the air conditioning. And sometimes it won't happen all the time. Sometimes they have like a bucket in the bottom that holds all the water. If you park on a hill at the right angle, you might drop a gallon of water on the ground.
Interesting.
So Don't freak out, but if you ever see water in that mid portion of your car, it's usually from your air conditioning, especially if it's been hot and you've been using your air conditioner a lot.
Okay.
Very common in California. So those are the bolts. Yep. So Ford uses Loctite to make sure that they don't come out. We're gonna put blue Loctite back on these bolts when we put them back in. So both of those bolts.
Is it like glue?
Yeah. So it makes it so the bolts don't back out. It's like an adhesive you put on it and keeps them from turning.
Makes sense.
We're gonna take these out. I'm gonna put some grease on them. These work like springs. So what they do when you stomp on the brakes, when you're done stomping on the brakes, these are supposed to push that back as like a spring function. So what happens on brakes, especially as they get older, they get dry, they run out of grease and they get stuck.
Right.
And it can cause brake overheating. So part of a full brake service, my shop, I take these out, clean them and lubricate them. And I also replace this hardware that the brake pad's right on as well. See, the groove is worse on the back. You actually can touch it now, it's not, if you can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the variation I was telling you about. And you can see where right here, so the parts of the brake got so hot they stuck to the rotor.
Shit.
Yeah.
Pretty cool to see though.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of understand what's going on now. You
Yeah.
can see it here too happening.
Yeah.
The contact patch to where the rotor rides flush to this bearing here. Because what can happen is if you don't have a flush contact surface, the rotor doesn't sit completely on there and you can have warpage of the rotor again.
Okay.
So it needs to be, again, like this had to go back to its home position.
Yeah.
This needs to go to a flat surface.
Yeah.
When it's brand new, it's not a problem. Another thing I just pay attention to and I work on my customers' cars is I like to make sure that this rust is knocked down a little bit so that the rotor will sit flush on there completely. You don't have any binding or anything. So I'll clean it up, hit it with a wire brush, knock some of that rust off. And then I also put some grease on here to make it sure that the next person, just to be a nice guy, can take that one off easier and they're not having to hammer it.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens is these rust to it.
It's gonna be you though, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
nice
just in case, I like to think that it comes full circle. So that's what I keep telling myself.
Well, this is all shiny now already. Look at that bad boy.
Yeah. Coated.
Nice.
So
yeah, it looks
all
so
this,
different.
This stuff, the gray surface, it's designed to help bed the brake pads in and seat them to help with squeaking. So that was like I was telling you before, the first 100 miles. And as this wears down, this is gonna help the brake pads bed in and they're gonna last longer. So for the first 100 miles, kind of chill. Don't super get on it, brakes or anything. And just like that, nice and simple. Back on.
When you mean chill braking, like what's
Not like coming
what's not chill braking?
like 80 miles an hour and then locking the brakes up into a corner.
Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna be doing that.
Going out be like coming down Decker, 70, downshift, and then lock up the wheels coming around the corner.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen, don't worry.
So I put this in here just to hold it in place because it's floating.
Yeah.
So this just kind of keeps it in place when I assemble everything. And then once we put the wheel obviously back on, I'll take this back off.
Cool.
Some cars, these are directional. Like on the GT Mustang, that brake kit we were looking at, the rotors are specific driver and passenger side.
Right.
So, because the way the cooling fins are, because the way they scoop the air. With this brake package, they're interchangeable left and right, same thing. Same thing with the rear rotors.
Okay, cool. Nice.
So there's a little groove that catches on, push it back in. You can kind of hear it bottomed out, and that's it.
Nice.
It's back in place. So.
All greased up.
Yeah, so now it's gonna do what it needs to now.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's got
Keep me safe, Todd. What is that bit called that you're putting back on?
the caliper bracket. This plate and the area where the brake pad slides in the caliper bracket. So we don't have any binding. So it's free floating.
Look at these new. Oh yeah, that's not shiny.
Yeah, so there is a directional one.
Ah,
So this goes to the inside, this goes on the outside.
right.
And this thing, if you ever need it in the future, we're not anywhere near it. So once these wear down to the minimum, it'll hit this little piece of metal and they'll squeal and tell you that you need brakes.
Shit.
So that's a wear piece of metal, it's a wear thing.
So that's literally just a safety mechanism.
Yeah, to tell you need to change your brakes. So it'll squeal. And this is much different of a noise than what you were having. So once it gets to that point.
And you can see the thickness change.
Yeah.
Like that's all, basically like half of that's been worn down.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you still have like, this is where Ford recommends to wear it at. So you still had like another couple millimeters left.
Yeah.
So you still had some space, if you can see where, until that actually makes contact with the face of this rotor.
Yeah, cut a little bit.
Yeah, so when it hits here, you can see here, that's where it would be at.
Oh yeah, it's got a little bit. How long does that usually take to go down?
It's all driving habits.
Okay, so that's where those little things go on to hold the brake in place. And these were the old ones. Kind of dirty. 1 brake down, 3 to go. That looks so different.
This gray will go away and it'll become shiny.
Okay.
So that's just on there to keep it from rusting and to help the brakes bed in.
And what you don't want is burn marks and grooves.
Yeah. So you try to avoid. Which this time around I think we're going to be better because like I said, you're stopping more.
Yeah.
Transmission. Engine braking more.
Yeah.
So.
On to the next tire. On the brake, even.
Almost 2 down now.
2 down, 2 to go. Beautiful.
For the pads with squeeze, the brake pads, this does the same concept, but it's like a screw.
Parking brake, regular brake.
Are there to make sure that the brakes spring back and don't stick.
Okay. Instead of the.
It does 2 forms of it. So it's got this,
Right, yeah, the same as before.
same as before, this all here, and then this as well.
What do the springs do that's different?
So if you look at here, see how, if you look in here, see how they pop off see the gap in there?
Yeah.
In the metal of the rotor and the pad?
Yeah.
So as I squeeze it, that's where it is resting. They spring back.
Right. Okay.
So that's what the purpose of those guys are, to keep that, so they pop back, they don't get stuck.
Yeah, because you don't want them to be like.
Yeah, you don't want them
jammed
stuck all the
together.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So it has 2 different types of ways to push the pad back. It's got the spring here normally, and then it's got these springs. These are a pain in the butt. They don't want to spin, they get corroded. Hopefully that should just be enough because these pads are still pretty fresh.
It's definitely more complicated back here.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on. And the bad thing about these is as they get older, they don't have like the lubrication style where they have the grease in it. So what happens is these pistons will stick. So you gotta put a lot of force on it. Bad thing is these are usually like a cast, like a steel or an aluminum. And if you put too much force on them, you crack that.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. It's kind of like get the feel for it, like how much you turn, how much pressure you put on it. You have to make sure that these are thoroughly engaged in the notches, because if not, you're basically destroying a customer's caliper, and then you're basically replacing this, which gets expensive. So it's just kind of like patience. Same thing. See the glazing on that? And you can see the little tiny fissures starting to happen. So that one cracked through. Just got hot.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. Which is nice about this tool. Pivot on it.
Yeah.
A little bit more leverage on it. Just make sure you don't hit yourself in the face.
Have you done that before?
These, once you got them loose, because you can break them. So, same thing. We're a little wearing, so it'll tell you when the pads need to be replaced. Popping like that.
Hey.
The little springs I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
You gotta replace those too, because those are wear out items. So these are kind of tricky after you put them on, because after you install new ones, it wants to push the pad out because they're so much newer.
Yeah.
So you gotta kind of.
there. Those are in there now. Make sure they're bottomed out, not gonna pop out. And hopefully I push this in here far enough. Kind of
Yay.
wrestling game. But eventually it gets in there.
Yeah.
But you saw the difference on how much those springs wear out.
Yeah.
You can see that how much they push back. So they have a pretty significant job.
Yeah. Because, I mean, they weren't doing that before.
Yeah, they're just going out.
They were chilling.
Yeah.
You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight eyes.
Cured. Almost.
You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me in high.
One more to go. Yeah, that's a lot like thicker than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean when it gets like this? It will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it will crumble.
It'll basically just snap off. So this material, the backing plate, is stiffer, but this is bonded. They chemically bond it to it.
Yeah.
So this material right here will break off, and then eventually that'll just snap off, and no more brakes.
Damn, we are changing them just in time, it seems.
Yeah, not too bad. I've seen a lot worse.
Yeah. We're almost done changing all of the brakes, and I have been observing Todd do his fine work. And I've learned quite a lot about how this all works, which you would have seen in this video. I definitely now know how to change a tyre. And the last one is done. Woohoo! Happy with your work?
Always make sure you hand start these before you put them back on. If you gotta ever change a tire. If not, if you cross thread this, it's a whole world of hurt. Have you ever done it before?
No.
Here, try.
And that's just like from a rock.
Yeah, rocks, something caught it. These are softer tires too. You can kind of feel the compound. So it's unfortunate. Like when you buy your racing tires,
Yeah,
this is
something
another
like
reason.
that happens.
This is another thing that could happen because like the sportier tires you get, the softer the compound.
Yeah.
So they chip away.
Where do those rocks come from? Like usually just on the freeway?
Just whatever's on the road, yeah. Just run over. It's like a nail. Just shitty situation, bad luck.
Yeah.
The brake goes up, pedal goes all the way to the floor.
Oh.
So no brakes right now. Just to make sure we have brakes again.
Yeah.
Now they work again.
Okay.
Very
3 or 4
important.
times after you do it,
A couple
so that
times.
you have fluid
More
in
the
there.
better. It doesn't hurt. You can be here 10 minutes all you want to stop going.
Yeah.
Before you drive it away after any brake job, always make sure, stomp it a couple times, make sure you have brake pressure again.
Yeah. That was funny. You can see that like whizzing around.
This
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the belt. That's the engine belt. So that's what powers your alternator, the cooling system. Does a couple of different things.
Yeah. It's the Ecoboost engine.
Yeah, that thing spin around. That's another thing. Usually like 100,000 miles it changes because it's rubber and they break.
Right.
So you put a new one. If that breaks, then you cannot, the charging system won't work. Like
Wait, just wait.
overheat.
Yeah.
Well,
Good job.
Go drive it.
Yay!
You've opened the hood on this before, right? There.
Now I know how to open the hood and put it up, check everything. I know now. Okay, so I guess now we're going out to check if the brakes work.
Yeah. See if it actually stops.
Yeah.
So just like a couple like small stops to kind of get the pads started because they do kind of sound kind of gravelly, scratchy to begin with. That's the new coating kind of coming in on the brakes and everything. So kind of do that. Sometimes you get a little bit of smoke too because it's the stuff burning off. So
Oh.
yeah, so you might get kind of a smoke or like kind of a smell, kind of like a kind of plasticky burning smell sometimes. As it heats up, it melts away, and then the brake pad and the rotors.
And that's that grey kind of
wearing
painted
off.
surface.
Yeah, wearing off. But just like this, like you would normally drive the car.
Yeah.
And then after they're seated in, then you go back to driving it normal.
Okay.
I mean, fun.
Fun driving.
Yeah.
Yay. Fast and then slow.
Yeah. Just a couple of like just stops. Nothing too crazy, but just get them seated, make sure everything works okay. Nothing feels weird, shaking or pulling or anything that would like different from like how a brake system should work. When I drive it, make sure everything's okay and nothing falls off the car.
Fingers crossed. Lots of weird fingers crossed. Paint over it, or
it's like a coating.
A grey coating has already started coming off. It looks super fresh though, shiny and new.
Yep.
So I'm done at the shop. All my brakes are done. We took it out on a test drive, and she is feeling good. So I'm just about to make my way home, test out these brakes myself. See the difference. Wow, my hair looks crazy. What has been happening to me? But also Todd's been telling me about all these car shows that are coming up around here, so I'm definitely going to check those out soon and vlog about it as well. So make sure that you stay tuned on this channel to see some really cool car content, and also check out Todd's services. It's awesome. Back in my baby, back in my baby.